Right, how do I get this thing up? Hang on. Overlay, go on there. There we are. Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the Nerdic Pro Podcast. How are we this evening, whatever, or afternoon, this morning, whatever sort of time frame you are actually listening to this podcast on? I would just like to start off by saying thank you very much to those people who will be watching live on this podcast and everyone who will be watching on the replays. So, welcome to this debut episode that the Nerdic Pro Podcast will be bringing out here on the Nerdic Pro Podcast. Just gotta put this banner on. Which is the Nerdic Series. 63 minutes. So welcome to this debut edition of this brand new weekly series that is going to be commencing as of tonight, as of this evening, which is sorry, bear with me 2 seconds, 2 minutes. That's hang on. Yes. So yeah, I do apologise. Just trying to sign in to the Nerdic Pro YouTube channel here. This is basically just going to be of myself, Richie, Robert, Stuart, etc. Chatting about all things sort of nerdy sort of type. The stuff that the Nerdic Pro Podcast is primarily based on, like wrestling, etc. Wrestling. Obviously wrestling, gaming, football, those of you like in the States, in Canada, soccer, as well as anime sort of stuff. I was watching some Pokémon stuff earlier. I've got some notes jotted down here. Christ. And all that. However, today I will primarily be focusing on some gaming bits and pieces and reviewing this past Monday Night Raw and last week's AEW Dynamite. I've got all my Raw notes, haven't I? Oh, I've not jotted down the rest of my bloody Raw notes. Dumbass. Right. So what matches have I also got? That I've got now. So Dynamite I'll definitely be talking about from last Wednesday. Sorry, my desk is absolutely fucking flooded with bits of paper and paperwork, etc. So I'm just looking. The podcast is live, are we not? We are live. Yeah, happy days. Yada, yada. So let me head on to Facebook and actually share that I am live. This past Monday Night Raw was the sort of Kickstarter to this year's King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring tournaments. I ain't gonna lie, the two of the King of the Ring tournaments, or both the King of the Ring tournaments, I believe, actually took place two of the King of the Ring tournament matches. There was also Jey Uso, Finn Balor. So Jey Uso, Finn Balor, match-wise, kicked off Monday Night Raw this past Monday. However, so to kickstart Raw in general, we saw Damian Priest, JD McDonough, Finn Balor, and Dominic Mysterio all come down to the ring just so Priest can cut a promo saying about what transpired at Backlash on Saturday, where in his match against Jey Uso, he didn't want anyone getting involved and all that. And so just posting on Facebook now. So Nerdic Pro owner Bobby Sunstar is now live on YouTube. Hope to be seeing you guys there. Hope to see you guys. So hope to see you guys. Spelled guys wrong. Guys there. Shit load of exclamation marks. Shit. So what was it? Yeah, so because last Saturday in Lyon, France, obviously the Backlash pay-per-view was taking place, and it was the largest gate in an arena show in the history of the WWE. As you know, I do agree that the WWE has been on fire these past few months, and there have been a few statistics brought out recently, like in and around Mania sort of season, that there's not been as many eyes on the WWE product since the Attitude Era, which ended in 2001, so 23 years ago. And there are these video segments playing of on shows like Raw, SmackDown, etc. Of Triple H saying that WWE is on fire, and I do perfectly agree. WWE is on fire at the moment, and and right, what was I saying? Yeah, I think storyline wise and matches have improved massively since we've been in this Paul Levesque era, the Renaissance era of the WWE. And like you look at going into Mania, there was so much anticipation from, pretty much from Survivor Series. We here in the Nerdic Pro Podcast had been literally fantasy booking Mania. So literally from Survivor Series last year, I had, and the rest of the team had been fantasy booking and predicting the Rumble, as you know, like the next sort of big pay-per-view after the Survivor Series pay-per-view, which tends to take place in November, is January's Royal Rumble, as they're two of the big four, and so, which obviously the big four pay-per-views are obviously the Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and the main one being WrestleMania. So yeah, so I'd been saying a few bits and pieces for months about what could take place at the actual Rumble pay-per-view, who could we potentially see back, who could we sort of see debut on the main roster from NXT or come into WWE unexpectedly, and what have you. Do you know what I mean? Jade Cargill wasn't that much of a surprise, as she had been in WWE she had already signed a WWE contract and she'd already been seen on screen doing a few segments, even been seen on NXT and on SmackDown and on Raw doing a few bits and pieces and what have you. Do you know what I mean? And and then obviously this past Saturday in Lyon, France, she, like herself and the EST of WWE, Bianca Belair, had won the WWE Women's Tag Team titles, which I thought was quite good. Do you know what I mean? Going back to the Rumble, when she actually made her in-ring debut for WWE, I think the 10 minutes or whatever that she was actually in that Rumble match for, I think that she looked a much bigger star. Even the backstage segments that she had with the likes of Charlotte Flair, do you know what I mean? I thought that made her, and the actual 10 minutes of her Rumble appearance that she spent in the ring made her look an entirely bigger star than her entire time in AEW, in All Elite Wrestling. Not knocking AEW in the slightest. It's just that I think from a story standpoint and holy shit, I've got to tune in to the next to the next show, the following SmackDown, the following Raw, I've got to tune into the pay-per-view and what have you. Do you know what I mean? And I think that personally, in my opinion, it's just that I think that WWE do a better job selling their shows to me than what AEW do. Don't get me wrong, AEW do put on some great shows and all that. Do you know what I mean? I'm not knocking AEW in that aspect in the slightest. As I think that WWE have their fucking critiques and all that. Do you know what I mean? It's just that I think that for me, as a fan of the wrestling business, I think that WWE do the better job of putting in my mind saying that I need to watch the following episode, or the next Raw, the next SmackDown, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And so AEW can do that. Don't get me wrong. It's just as I've said, I think that WWE, especially the past few months, have made me feel that sort of way. Do you know what I mean? And I think that this past Monday on Raw was a very, very good show. I think a couple of the matches that took place, Ricochet, Ilya Dragunov, fuck me, what a match that was, right? I think that if booked properly, right, I genuinely do think that if Ricochet and Ilya Dragunov do enter into somewhat of a feud at some point, I think that they can have some scorching hot matches, some fantastic matches. Because this past Monday, they put on a very, very, very good technical catch sort of style, high flying sort of style match. You know what I mean? I think that Ilya Dragunov works perfectly with somebody like Ricochet. Do you know what I mean? They're both technically, literally the same person. Do you know what I mean? I genuinely do think that they can genuinely be, in some aspects, like the same wrestler. Do you know what I mean? As they have very, very similar techniques. They have the same sort of standpoints and all that. Do you know what I mean? And what I did. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. The main event match was, again, another King of the Ring tournament. Between the Ring General Gunther, who I still refer to as Volta, right? Because, that's sort of where I first knew him from, from his days, back in like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, and on the indies with like Progress and what have you, and Evolve, back in the day, so, yeah. That, again, another banger, in this sort of series that Sheamus likes to say, putting on banger after banger after banger after banger in his Irish accent. And, and again, I agree. The match they had, Clash at the Castle in Cardiff, at the Principality Stadium over a year and a half ago. It's mental to think, right? Side rant sort of thing. Not exactly a rant. I'll take that side sort of back. But it's mental to think that Clash at the Castle was a year and a half ago. Do you know what I mean? For those of you that don't already know, I've said it a million times. Those of you regular viewers of the Nerdic Pro Podcast, I was one of the 62,200 and some odd people in the audience at the Principality Stadium in Cardiff for the first Clash at the Castle, because they're obviously doing one in Glasgow in Scotland in a few weeks, aren't they? But the first Clash at the Castle on September 3rd, 2022. And again, it's mental to think that, the fact that now I did a weekender up in Cardiff with a few mates, that was 20, so August, July, June, 20 months ago. Fuck. So it'll be 2 years in about 4 months' time. May, so June, July, August. Yeah, bloody hell. I still to this day consider Clash at the Castle that weekend, because we went up. Well, my sort of Clash at the Castle experience started off the Thursday night, and as we were due to leave Kings Lynn, sort of town just up the road, I was meeting up with the people that I went with in Kings Lynn here in Norfolk at 5:30 Friday the 2nd of September morning. So at 5:30 the 2nd, so the Friday morning, so the day before Clash at the Castle. And so I stayed around, obviously taxi at that time and wanted to be a fucking, grand fucking know the prices around here. But and buses around here don't start till 10 to 7. So I'd have been late anyway. So I stayed around a mate who was also going to Clash at the Castle, funnily enough. But I went with other people, if you know what I mean. I didn't go with him. I went with other people and all that. Like the group that I went with was a different group to the people that he was going with. But I kept around is the Thursday to then be able to meet up with my sort of group the Friday morning. So yeah, he then went up to where we met in Lynn. Yeah, we were there for about 5 in the morning and didn't get a fucking wink of sleep that Thursday night. And yeah, so we literally left literally dead on 5:30. And yeah, so and then actually got to the campsite we were staying on about 11:45 and all that. That's when we sort of cracked open our sort of first bottle of Stella. Or what was it we were drinking? No, San Miguel, wasn't it? And so we stopped off at a service station just outside Birmingham. Yeah, so, and then we got like 8:30 in the morning, and like 8:30 in the morning, as that was like the sort of halfway point between here and Cardiff. So yeah, we stopped off there for about an hour, got a Mackey's breakfast, and yeah, so my first time actually having a McDonald's cheese and bacon flatbread. I think 3 of them, I believe. It's fucking gorgeous, and yeah, so. But yeah, anyways, yeah, and then we obviously drove the rest of the way. We then stopped off at Tesco's just on the outskirts of Cardiff. And yeah, I then ran up to this cafe, and then like this cafe that was in the Tesco's, because I couldn't find a toilet in the actual Tesco store itself, but there's like an upstairs sort of type of thing in the in Tesco's that had a cafe in it, and I then fucking barged my way like into the toilet out of shit, and yeah, so and yeah, and then I felt guilty just using the toilet there, so I thought, fuck it, like I might as well buy something. So I brought like 2 or 3 bottles of Diet Coke. They weren't fucking selling Pepsi Max in this cafe either, the bastards. So yeah, like I didn't see any Pepsi Max there, but yeah, whether or not they sold out or they just don't sell Pepsi products, the bastards. But yeah, yeah, this podcast is not sponsored by Pepsi, just putting it out there. And yeah, so and then we made the rest of the trek to Cardiff to this campsite. That was probably like an extra 15-20 minutes drive from the Tesco's that we were in to the campsite and all that. And yeah, we then checked in at reception, found the pitch we were on, got a couple of like sort of like camping sort of seats out, if you know what I mean, like fold up, like the ones that you can fold up. Got a couple of them out, cracked open a bottle of San Miguel each, drank that, set up, and set up our tents and all that. And yeah, we then cracked open another bottle of San Miguel each, and yeah, we were hitting Cardiff city centre for like 2:00 and all that. Do you know what I mean? So we sort of wanted to sort of Google Maps how to get from, because the campsite we were staying on, there was like this massive sort of how do you describe it? Like a massive sort of what's the place in New York? Not Times. Is it Times Square where this sort of big sort of park, Central Park? That's it. Kind of like, because there's a similar sort of thing in Kings Lynn, like the walks in Kings Lynn, but not everybody knows of Kings Lynn, but more people will know of Central Park in New York. There was like a central sort of park, but in Cardiff. You know, this massive sort of parky sort of, you know, fields, sort of trees, river and all that, and what have you. Do you know what I mean? Massive one of these. And it was sort of connecting on to the campsite we were on, and then we travelled through this sort of foresty sort of area, this sort of parky sort of area, and then we came out literally just outside Cardiff city centre, and yeah, and then the entrance to like the gateway to Cardiff Castle. Literally just opposite is like a sort of main street in Cardiff, Cardiff city centre. And we then found a pub called the Blue Bell, I believe it's called. Very good pub actually. And we then went in there and a couple of drinks, and then sort of travelled off to other pubs and all that, and went to explore the Cardiff Castle, like the sort of bits and pieces there. But and then I really wanted to get Jay on, who one of the guys that I went with, but bearing in mind it was nearly 2 years ago this September. Honestly, that weekend in Cardiff was genuinely the best experience that I've ever had in my fucking life. I had so much fucking fun at that, with the whole sort of Clash at the Castle experience, you know what I mean? Because it's not, just the wrestling side of things, it's the experience as well and what have you, you know what I mean? And seeing other people in, certain sort of venues, if you know what I mean, in different bars and cafes and all that, like in and around Cardiff, mingling with them, and speaking about wrestling, and, the Clash of the Castle pay-per-view, and speaking about who we think is going to win and who we think is not going to win and what we think is going to happen at the show and what have you. Do you know what I mean? And and what have you. That's, to me, that's a reason why I went to it, because obviously Jay invited me and all that. It was literally through the Nerdic Pro Podcast, and this podcast that I did at the, I want to say, end of July, start of August in 2022, doing a podcast or what have you. Jay was watching live. He's previously appeared a couple of times on the Nerdic Pro Podcast as well, and what have you. Do you know what I mean? And he goes, because I had a few like announcement bits and pieces, because this was in and around the same sort of time that I had a few people on interview-wise who I was interviewing, and I was like, basically like Tony Khan being like, massive announcement coming, massive announcement coming, massive announcement coming. That sort of part of Tony Khan, and he then comments on this live stream that I was doing, asking if I was going to Cardiff for Clash of the Castle, and I'm like, no. And he then says, well, I could have given you a lift up there and what have you, because he lives not too far from where I do, not at the same time, but he lives probably about 3/4 of an hour away from where I do. So I sort of get the podcast finished and what have you, and like he was also like, yeah, I could have given you a lift, we could have gone together and all that. I've got a couple of my mates are going as well and what have you, and you could have come up with us and all that. And so I then sent him a message, because I've known Jay a few years, and what have you, met him through Falling Star Wrestling, local company to here, and I'll then send him a message asking if that was a genuine sort of offer sort of thing, and he goes, yeah, definitely, and what have you, and he says that they're going camping up there and what have you, and said, if I want to tag along, then by all means, and I was like, yeah, definitely, and what have you. I said that, I'll happily contribute to, I don't want to take the piss. I'll happily contribute to fuel and for the camping side of things as well and whatever, because he'd already got all that booked and organised, etc. and all that. So yeah, I said that that I'll happily contribute to all that. Do you know what I mean? And saying that I don't want to take the piss. Do you know what I mean? Happily contribute to his petrol, happily contribute to obviously petrol there and back sort of thing. And because he was staying in Lindy the Thursday night as well, but obviously not where I was staying. He was staying. I can't actually remember who he was staying with, but and then there was a few of us meeting up in Lynn and all that, and so met up in Lynn, Kings Lynn, and what have you, and we'd sort of been in contact and all that regularly from when it was confirmed that I was going to be tagging along to obviously like the day before and all that, and like the day of, and what have you, just sort of finalising bits and pieces, where we were going to meet, what time we were going to meet, and all that, and what to bring, what not to bring, like what to pack, what not to pack, etc. And Jay is a regular listener to the Nerdic Pro podcast. Anyways, I don't know whether or not he's listened to these 3 or 4 podcasts that have happened. I think this is the third live stream podcast here on YouTube that's taking place now. I don't know whether or not he's listened to any of these, but he does regularly listen to the ones over on Facebook, on our Facebook page. And the Clash at the Castle experience and all that was absolutely fantastic. I think that production-wise and all that, I think that I think the WWE went above and beyond with all that. I don't know whether or not I'm saying that I had as much fun as what I actually did, and saying that it's that it was literally the best weekend of my life, which still to this day, 20 months later, it still is. You know what I mean? And then less than a month afterwards, I started refereeing and and working within the wrestling business as a referee and MC and all that. Do you know what I mean? And but I'm not saying it because I'm as big of a wrestling fan as what I am, and that had put sort of put me in. I want to say that put me in like my sort of happy place sort of thing, and what have you. Do you know what I mean? And I don't. I think that everyone who I went with. So everyone who I went with, and I know loads of people that went to it, loads of people personally that went to it. People that I knew at the time of Clash at the Castle. I know loads of people that went to it, and I know people that I've met since Clash at the Castle that were at it, and what have you, and they all said that they literally enjoyed, that they really did love the experience and love the show and all that. Do you know what I mean? And going off on tangents and all that, I really need to stop doing that. And I think that where the fuck did I even start talking about Clash of Clans? It was the Gunter Sheamus match, wasn't it? This past Monday Night's Raw. And this is meant to be like a Nerdic series, so I'm meant to be going off on tangents and all that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, tell you what, if I go on tangents, tough shit. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think that the Clash of the Cup, yeah, definitely big thing, and but yeah. Anyways, I need to do some better planning for this series, don't I? So yeah, anyone wanting to know upcoming podcasts, so tomorrow evening at 7:30 p.m. UK time, the Nerdic Pro Podcast will be welcoming on Disney Online and Tiny Online, two Twitch streamers. We've not confirmed what platform we will be streaming on. We will be using StreamYard for definite and what have you. But what platform will be on, whether it be YouTube or Facebook, that is still to be confirmed. That'll get confirmed tomorrow at some point. And yeah, then on the 18th of May, we will be going live. Myself and Richie will be hosting these two podcasts. As on the 18th of May, we will be going live again. Platform not been confirmed yet. We will be going live with a 5-piece metal band based in Kings Lynn in Norfolk in England. 3 of the 5 members, I don't actually know which members, but as Richie's organised it. Yeah, so 3 of the 5 members of a 5-piece metal band known as Celestial. They'll be coming on the 18th of May. Again, I believe 7:30 p.m. UK time. So yeah. Anyways, so yeah. I'm gonna bring Richie on, Robert on, etc., to talk about these sorts of things, and Stuart, our general manager, and yeah, like my sort of second in command to hear on the Nerdic Pro podcast. And yeah, so anyways, I'm going to leave this podcast here. I'll probably come back for another one of these episodes over the weekend, but this has been like this sort of opener to the podcast, to this new series that's going to be taking place, the Nerdic Series. And yeah, so anyways, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the Nerdic Pro Podcast, my name is, as per usual, Ben, and be sure to be on Facebook on the Nerdic Pro Podcast Facebook page every Tuesday evening at 7:30 p.m. UK. Yeah, at 7:30 p.m. UK time every Tuesday for Nerdic Pro Weekly. Last night was episode in week number 129 of Nerdic Pro Weekly. Next week will be episode in week number 130 of Nerdic Pro Weekly. So, yeah, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is, as per usual, been Bobby effing Salastar, and I have been your owner of the Nerdic Pro Podcast. Thank you all very much to those of you who have been watching live. Thank you all very much to those of you who will be watching after the live stream. My name is, as per usual, once again, been, as per usual, Bobby effing Salastar, and I shall be seeing you all later. Thank you all very much, and goodbye.